Hey, welcome back. Zillow downgraded their forecast over the next 12 months regarding home sales and home values. This is a downgrade from their previous forecast that was posted 1 month ago. In today's video, I'll share Zillow's latest housing market forecast for home sales and home values over the next 12 months. I will also share their predictions for this year as well, including the areas in which they believe home prices will decrease the most, and also the areas they are forecasting for home values to rise by the most this year. And lastly, I'll provide some context regarding how does their forecast for home sales, how does that compare to years past, going all the way back until 1989. And before we get started, if you guys get any value out of today's video, then please hit the like button. Also, consider subscribing. I post frequent housing market updates so you guys can be more informed about whether to buy or sell a house right now. With that said, I appreciate you so much for joining me in today's video, and let's begin. So this was posted about 1 week ago. It says Zillow expects home values to climb by 1.8% in 2024. This is a modest decrease from last month's projection of a 2% growth rate this year. Now, something I found to be interesting, I made a video yesterday regarding Fannie Mae's real estate market predictions this year and also for 2025. Now, Fannie Mae is predicting that home values based on their HPI or their home price index will increase by 6.1% this year, whereas Zillow is only predicting a gain of 1.8%. In regards to existing home sales, Zillow is forecasting for 4.1 million sales this year, which is about 1% more than last year. And last year we had basically a 28-year low in sales, the lowest level since 1995. So barely a gain compared to last year, up by only 1%. That in fact is actually a little bit lower than their previous forecast, because 1 month ago, they're forecasting around 4.2 million sales. When I made that video, I told you guys that my forecast was around 4 million. So I believe that their forecast was a lot higher compared to what we should see this year if we have the same sales pace so far this year compared to last year. So if we have basically the same rate for the remainder of the year compared to last year, we should get at around 4 million sales this year. I have an update regarding that because I'll share my calculation and forecast regarding that here in a little bit. But first, I want to share this as well. Here is an Excel spreadsheet I came up with to show how the sale forecast this year compares to years past. So the forecast again, 4.1 million. It is rounded to the nearest 100,000s. So the forecast is basically 4.1 million, a little bit lower compared to the forecast at 4.2 million that was posted 1 month ago. So if we actually get to 4.1 million sales this year, excluding last year, when we had 4,090,000, that'd be the fewest number of home sales since the year of 2008. And again, my prediction is around 4 million existing home sales because of the sales pace compared to last year. And by the way, if we actually have 4 million sales this year, that'd be the fewest amount of sales since 1995. Absolutely insane, especially considering the fact that we have tens of millions more people living in the United States right now compared to the 1990s. So check this out, 4.1 million, that'd be the fewest amount of sales since 2008 at 4.1 million sales. And looking back at 1995, we had 3.849 million. So if we have 4 million sales this year, that'd be the lowest amount since 1995. Of course, excluding last year when we had just under 4.1 million. A few more things I want to touch on here is that if this forecast actually comes into fruition this year at 4.1 million, that'd be a decrease of 23% compared to 2019. On top of that, based on my nerdy Excel formula here, the median number of home sales since 1989 is 5,030,000. So that's the median number ever since the year of 1989. So if we have 4.1 million this year, therefore they're predicting this year to be about 1 million fewer than the long run average going back over the past several decades. Can you say a lack of home sales on a national level, to say the least? Something to keep in mind as well is that the forecast from Zillow is roughly on par with Fannie Mae from my video I posted 1 or 2 days ago, because they're forecasting 4,129,000 Zillow just below that at 4.1 million, but again, that's rounded though. So Fannie Mae and Zillow are basically predicting around 4.1 million sales this year. And sales, by the way, include existing single-family houses, townhomes, condos, and co-ops. So in other words, excluding any sales of brand new home construction. I also want to share my predictions on how I came up with around 4 million sales. I actually did this this morning. So here is the year-to-date numbers last year. So January through July last year, we had 2.409 million, 2,409,000 to be exact. This is based on the National Association of Realtors data for not seasonally adjusted numbers, actual number of home sales per month back in 2023. So January through July last year, just over 2.4 million. This year, we have 2,360,000. So about 49,000 fewer home sales so far this year compared to the same time frame last year. That represents a decrease of 2% from last year. Let me share my calculation with you guys. So last year, again, we had 4,090,000 existing home sales for the entire year, right? If we actually decrease that by 2%, multiply that by 0.98, you would get at, 4,008,200, just over 4 million home sales this year. And that again is 2% less than last year. So if the pace in sales for the remainder of this year, which of course is August through December, is on par with what happened last year, then we would have approximately 4 million sales by year end. I'm also curious to see what you guys feel regarding sales. Do you guys think we're going to have less than 4 million sales this year? Do you think that home sales will decrease more in the second half this year compared to last year? And if that's the case, we should have actually less than 4 million sales by year end. But please leave me a comment below. Going back to Zillow's latest housing market forecast, it says here, so far this year, sales have remained lower than the flow of homes coming onto the market. In other words, home sales are actually not increasing at the same rate of new listings hitting the market. That's how I read that. Also, inventory this July is about 25% higher compared to 1 year ago. So let's have a look at this. Let's look at pending home sales, a measure of contracts being signed between buyers and sellers, and also new supply hitting the market, in other words, new listings. So looking at pending home sales, that is at least a 3-year low for the 4 weeks ended August 25th. So pending sales are down by 6.9% year over year. That is the demand side. Let's have a look at the supply side though, right? New listings. These are basically houses being listed for sale on a national level. For the same time frame, that increased by 3%. So new listings increasing by 3%, yet pending home sales are falling by 6.9%. So this kind of similar scenario we've been seeing, new supply rising, but sales actually decreasing. An imbalance between supply and demand, which of course is one of the reasons why we're seeing inventory up compared to 1 year ago. Also, in my opinion, this kind of supports my theory that we're going to be around 4 million sales this year, potentially at 3.9 million, because pending home sales basically at a 3-year low for the same time frame and down by 7%. Of course, that's a measure of future closed home sales in the next 1 to 2 months. So if pending sales are down 7%, then closed home sales in the coming months should also decrease at the same relatively low levels as well. Now, here's something that you guys should be aware of as well, because again, pending home sales is a future indication of closed home sales in the next 1 to 2 months, right? So not all pendings become a closed home sale. And I mention this because the share of price reductions right now, according to Redfin, is at 6.8%. This is the highest share of price reductions for any week going back to at least the year of 2021. In addition, at 6.8%, this is higher compared to the peak back in October of 2022. Back then, the share of price drops was at 6.7%. So therefore, big picture, because pending home sales are down by about 7% year over year, but also we're seeing very high levels of price drops right now, this all implies we're going to see a relatively low level of sales in the coming months as well. Going back to Zillow's report here, it says as of July, inventory is up by 25% from a year ago. So every data source is different, right? So let's look at active listings according to Redfin, again for July, which is approximately right here. So according to Redfin for the month of July, inventory was up by 21%, roughly on par with what Zillow is saying here, up by about 25%. Now what's different right now compared to July though, is that inventory peaked basically in early August. And ever since then, inventory has basically been going down, which is much different compared to 2022. Inventory increased through basically the August. And now it's been decreasing this year for the past several weeks. So for the 4 weeks ended August 25th, there was 990,000 homes for sale. That's an increase of 16.74%, quite a bit lower compared to basically July, a gain of 21.1%. Something I mention on the channel fairly frequently here is that if you want to see home prices absolutely crater, if you guys want to see a housing market crash, basically inventory is basically moving it in the opposite direction. It's going down. In order to have a housing crash, you didn't have a glut of supply basically skyrocketing. And right now we're basically seeing a seasonal decrease of inventory on a national level. Getting back to Zillow's forecast, it says looking beyond 2024, easing inflation and more accommodating rates, in other words, a decrease in rates, should improve affordability slightly. This should help stimulate housing activity with both new listings and sales rising over the longer term. I'll give you my take regarding this because I think there's a lot of people who think that inventory or new supply in the market is going to far outpace housing demand if rates decrease. I can just say from being a realtor here in Sacramento, we have clients who are waiting for prices and or rates to fall. When rates decrease, all these buyers who are basically on the sidelines can't afford more for a house because rates are coming down. And therefore, I think that demand will increase much more than new supply here in the market if rates were to decrease. On top of that, a lot of home sellers are also home buyers as well. So I think an environment in which rates are decreasing is going to spur home buying demand much more so than housing supply. But what do you guys think? Please leave me a comment below. In regards to their quote here that we're going to see easing inflation, here's something that you guys should be aware of. So on Friday, this could be a big market mover potentially because the PCE, which is a very closely watched measure of inflation that the Fed actually looks at, is actually going to be posted on Friday morning. So depending on that report, we could see wide variations in rates or wide movements in rates, mortgage rates. So if inflation comes in way below expectations of the forecast, we could see mortgage rates decrease greatly. In contrast, if that report shows that inflation is actually winding up further and it increased more than what was forecasted, we could see rates increase on Friday. And the key one to look at is the core PCE, which is a personal consumption expenditure. This is according to investing.com's website. It says core personal consumption expenditure, or PCE, measures the changes in prices in goods and services purchased by consumers for the purpose of consumption, excluding volatile food and energy costs. That's the one you guys want to look at once Friday's report is announced regarding inflation data, which is closely monitored by the Fed. Lastly, Zillow also provided their forecast for the nation as a whole, but also for a lot of markets as well. So for the nation as a whole, again, their forecast by year end is a gain of 2% year over year. So they're forecasting that home values on average will be at $362,890. I mean, quite a bit higher compared to the trough, which is basically in January of 2012. Back then, we're at only 159,000, just under 160,000. Now we're over $360,000. And by the time we hit July of 2025, they're forecasting for home values to increase by 0.9% compared to July of 2024. Every housing market's different though, right? So let's have a look at Austin, Texas, which has a glut of supply, far more homes for sale right now compared to 2019. So Zillow's forecast for home values in Austin, Texas is a decrease of 2.1% through July of 2025. In contrast, in Boise, Idaho, they're forecasting a gain of 1.2%. Let's look at a few more here. Dallas, Texas, their forecast a decrease of 0.3% Looks like Denver has inventory up from 2019, and that makes sense that they're forecasting that home values will decrease by 1.1% year over year by the time we hit July next year. In contrast, in Houston, Texas, they're expecting a decrease down by 1.1%. Let's also have a look at Hartford, Connecticut, a big decrease of inventory compared to pre-COVID levels, and they're expecting for home values to increase by 2.4% by the time we hit July next year. Also in Los Angeles, they're forecasting a gain of 1.4%. And lastly, let's have a look at San Francisco, one of the biggest decreases I've seen on this website here, which I'll provide a link in the video description below here. But San Francisco, they're calling for a big decrease down by 3.6%. That is noteworthy because that's one of the biggest percentage decreases, but look at that. Home values in July at $1.133 million, just over $1.1 million. Of course, the San Francisco Bay Area is very expensive compared to the nation as a whole. And with that said, if you guys got any value out of today's video, then please hit the like button. Also consider subscribing as well. Also, if you guys want a real estate agent referral, check out my website, which is realestateteamfinder.com. I would love to connect you with a great real estate agent in your neck of the woods. Hope you guys have an amazing day. I appreciate it so much, and we'll see you next video.